Today is not one of those calm news cycle days. This feels bigger. It feels urgent. It feels like opportunity and pressure hitting the Chargers at the exact same time. Los Angeles is moving into a stretch where every decision carries weight, because you cannot keep treating Justin Herbert's roster like some endless long-term project. There are major extension talks on the table, a huge defensive rumor shaking things up, real pressure around the receiver room, and a draft coming that could expose exactly how bold this front office is willing to be. Stay with me, because today's read is hot and straight to the point. When I look at this first story, I do not see boring offseason paperwork. I see a message from Joe Hortiz about what kind of team the Chargers want to be once the draft dust settles. Because opening extension talks with Derwin James and Tuipulotu before the summer even heats up is not some minor front office detail. That is an identity choice. That is this franchise looking at the core of its defense and saying, the foundation is not getting shaken up. The foundation is getting locked in, and starting with Derwin makes total sense. Everybody in this league knows what this guy has meant since 2018. It is not just talent. It is not just Pro Bowls, all-pro recognition, versatility, box play, coverage, blitz value. It is presence. He changes the physical tone of the entire unit. When Derwin is healthy and fully dialed in, the Chargers' defense plays with more edge, more confidence, and more personality. And if the safety market has gone up, I honestly do not see why Los Angeles should act surprised by that. A player like this does not get cheaper if you wait. He gets more expensive, more valuable, and more urgent. Now, the part that really fires me up might be Tuli, because this is not just about keeping a respected name around. This is about locking in a 23-year-old pass rusher who just put up 13 sacks and officially crossed the line from promise to centerpiece. That is the kind of move that separates smart franchises from reactive ones. You extend the guy before the breakout gets even more expensive. You protect the future before it turns into a bidding war. And with Khalil Mack still being a real retirement candidate after the season, pretending Tuli can just wait would be asking for trouble. What makes this whole thing even stronger is how perfectly it fits what Hortiz has already shown us about roster building. Less panic over outside names. More belief in rewarding guys who develop in-house. And in this case, he is right. The Chargers should not be looking at Derwin and Tuli like summer problems. They should be looking at them like pillars for a team that wants to stop restarting every year. If these extensions pick up right after the draft, I am going to read that as seriousness, not soft caution, not passive management, real structure with teeth, because teams that want to contend do not treat their own spine like something they can sort out whenever. Now we get to the story that hits the fan base differently, because this one moves out of the organization lane and straight into pure aggression. The way Joe Hortiz answered the Dexter Lawrence question was enough by itself to make Chargers fans raise an eyebrow. Usually he shuts the door, kills the topic, and moves on. This time he did not. This time, he acknowledged the player. And by Chargers standards, that alone gets attention. That is why this cannot just be brushed off as random internet chatter. When a general manager this controlled leaves even a crack open on a name like that, the conversation changes. Dexter Lawrence is not just another talented defensive tackle. He is one of those guys who bends the offense's plan before the snap even happens. He collapses the pocket, eats double teams, wrecks the run game inside, and makes life easier for everybody around him. Put a player like that in the middle of the Chargers defense, and the whole unit looks different immediately. And here is where this turns into a serious discussion. Los Angeles has the room to think big. They have the cap space. They have future flexibility. They have enough structure to build a package if they decide this is the right swing. So the debate does not stop because the move is impossible. The debate stops because it would require a level of aggression this fan base still has not seen consistently enough. That is where the pressure on Hortiz really shows up. Because if there is ever a time to step out of the comfort zone, it is when you already have Justin Herbert, you brought in Mike McDaniel, and you know this team needs real impact if it wants to jump. Of course there is a price, and not a small one. Lawrence is already in a big money range. He could want even more. He is 28, and a trade like this would eat up meaningful assets. On top of that, the Chargers already have major internal business coming with guys like Derwin James and Tuipulotu. So nobody is playing fantasy football here. That is not the point. The point is this. If Dexter Lawrence has truly moved from easy dismissal to a real name on the radar, then Los Angeles is at least considering the kind of move that changes the ceiling of this defense for real. And I will put it plainly. If the price does not get insane, the Chargers need to think hard about this. Because part of this fan base is tired, and rightfully so, of watching this franchise act like every major swing is automatically too risky. Not every splash move is reckless. Sometimes the reckless move is staying small while the conference keeps getting meaner every single year. If there is a real shot to put a monster like this in the middle of your defense, then the bare minimum I want to see is real ambition. Not timid talk, not fear dressed up as discipline. The third story is the kind that frustrates you and keeps you thinking at the same time. Because Quentin Johnston is still sitting right in the middle of a debate nobody in Los Angeles has been able to fully close. Joe Hortiz came out and said he has not made calls about the wide receiver and has not gotten calls about him either. Fine, that cools the smoke a little bit, but it does not remove the tension around his name, because this was never just about random rumor noise. This is about fit, investment, and timing. Johnston still represents two things at once, and that is exactly why this case feels so tricky. On one side, he is still a young former first-round pick with size, tools, market value, and just enough flashes to make people believe a real breakout could still happen. On the other side, he also carries the weight of the issues that have slowed that breakout down. The drops are still hurting trust. The production has never fully given you that feeling of control, and fans look at him without really knowing whether they are watching a growing asset or a test case that has already taken too long to give a clear answer. But now there is a new element in this story, and it changes the temperature of everything: Mike McDaniel. Because when a coordinator with a strong offensive identity walks in, with clear ideas about separation, timing, leverage, and creating space, every receiver on the roster gets reevaluated under a brighter light. That is where Hortiz's comments open up two possible readings. The first one is simple. The Chargers really do want to give Johnston an honest chance in this new structure. And I do not think that read is crazy at all. There is talent there. There is size, burst, and room for a different kind of usage. Maybe McDaniel sees angles that were never fully unlocked before. But the second reading is still alive too, and every sharp fan knows it. Even if the Chargers are not trying to push Johnston out right now, that does not mean permanent protection. If the draft starts moving, if a receiver falls into the right range, if that room starts taking on a different shape with Ladd McConkey leading the way and another meaningful addition coming in early, then the situation changes fast. At that point, Johnston stops being just an internal project and starts becoming a trade chip again. Not because the team automatically gave up on him, but because roster building runs on hierarchy, cost, and urgency. And the fifth-year option price hanging out there adds even more pressure to that equation. So to me, the real answer is not Johnston is gone, and it is not Johnston is safe. The real answer is that the board is still set up. Today, Hortiz closed the door on the idea that there is some active market buzzing under the table right now. Fine. But the draft changes moods, changes priorities, and changes conversations way too fast for anybody to act like this story is buried. Quentin Johnston is still sitting in a very clear Chargers crossroads. Keep betting on the upside, or turn that upside into fuel for something that helps Herbert more immediately. And now we get to the part that really tests the patience of this fan base, because this fourth story is not just about one player. It is about nerve. It is about that old feeling that the Chargers see the need, understand the size of the problem, and still sometimes wait too long to hit it with the force the moment demands. When Daniel Jeremiah basically says the ideal scenario for Los Angeles would be landing Oliva Vega Ioane, but he does not expect that to happen naturally, the message underneath it is obvious. If the Chargers really want that solution, they may have to go get it. And honestly, it is past time for this franchise to stop waiting for an invitation. The interior offensive line has put Justin Herbert through too much for too long. This should be way beyond theoretical debate by now. We are not talking about luxury. We are talking about protection, stability, and basic functionality for an offense that wants to climb with Mike McDaniel. If Ioane is viewed as a guard who can walk in and raise the level immediately, then the mindset needs to be aggressive. Not, hopefully he falls. More like, what does it take to go get the right guy? That is the central frustration with Joe Hortiz right now. He deserves credit for smart moves. He deserves credit for sharp reads. But the fan base also has every right to demand the next step. Because solid management is not enough when the roster is screaming for a stronger push. Los Angeles still has room to maneuver. They can move future assets. They can build packages. They can act like a team that understands Justin Herbert should not spend another season surviving interior pressure up the middle. If the front office truly believes Ioane fixes a structural problem right away, then hesitating out of attachment to comfort would be a major mistake. And there is one more part of this that really sticks with me. Big teams do not build real jumps by living on passive hope. Sitting around and waiting for a draft miracle is just a prettier way of handing control to everybody else. If the Chargers truly want to change the level of this offense, then at some point they have to impose their own will. I am not saying burn assets without thinking. I am saying stop acting like every aggressive move is automatically too much. Sometimes the thing that is actually too much is the passivity. So I want to hear the fan base on this one. If trading up is the path to finally protect Herbert the right way inside, are you paying that price for Ioane? Or do you still think the Chargers need to sit tight and let the board come to them? Because that answer says everything about where this fan base is emotionally right now. If I have to lock in my takeaway after these 4 stories, it is simple. The Chargers do not have room anymore to think like a team stuck in slow construction mode. To me, the right move is locking in Derwin James and Tuipulotu, staying open to a major swing if it truly raises the ceiling of the defense, and attacking the draft with enough courage to finally protect Justin Herbert inside the way this franchise should have done a long time ago. Quentin Johnston may still have a role, but I would not treat that as untouchable priority territory. What I want to see now is strong decisions, clear vision, and real ambition in Los Angeles.